You're tuned in to RX Radio.
The only way.
No Zen?
No, dude,
Uh-oh.
I told you this. I got a blood pressure cuff. And my blood
Yeah.
pressure, it's like, I think I'm just having mini strokes day after day.
You know what it is? I think we're so much of the one person that you're getting my blood pressure reading. I think
Yeah.
that's what's happened. After 13 years, we've just morphed into one person.
It's sympathetic blood pressure. It's like, Jordan's stressed today.
Yeah.
Fuck my systolic.
We're like twins. So, yeah, all right. Interesting. It was a concerning first reading.
First reading out of the box, this thing said I was like 190 over 100. I'm like,
Oh, yeah, that's you out of the box.
All right, I'll see you later. I'm out.
Jiunta. Nuts.
I did it like
now.
So like it's come down, and I've like made lifestyle changes to make it come down, but like consistently I'm like around 140 over 80, which is, it's not great. It's not as bad as I initially thought it was, but it's not great.
All right, well, let's talk lifestyle changes here. Obviously, like, your daily trips to Zinfandel are gone. So what else other than that have you made changes to? You're heavy as fuck.
Dude, so right now, this is I don't even, let me look at the time frame on this, but in the last 2.5 months, I'm down about 18 pounds.
Yeah. Your neck looks a lot more comfortable in that shirt.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I'm really disappointed in myself for this. But yeah, I'm down about 18 pounds. Just switched up the diet because like I was going in on macros. Like it was protein, it was carbs, and it was fat. And I didn't give a fuck about anything else. Like I'm gonna hit the numbers in the dumb app. There were two that I didn't account for: cholesterol and sodium. My blood labs, they're telling me about it right now.
Well, so let's go. We got the whole thing. That's right. You got your bloods done. What were the what were the red numbers? Are we going to the tail of the tape? We're pulling it up.
let me pull it up.
Oh, I love where this episode is going. This is great.
This is more fun than I thought it was going to be.
I'm excited. Holy! I get mine done. If it's any consolation, I'm going to get my bloods done in mid-January in Tampa. So we'll do a recap of how terrible my health is.
You want to compare how soon we're going to die?
Dude, just end it.
Yeah. All right. So my BUN, my nitrogen was high, which of course, when you're eating 300 plus grams of protein a day, like that's gonna go up. Let's see, cholesterol. This was the concerning one. Total cholesterol 242. You're typically gonna want that under 200. LDL, the non-favorable one. Again, you're typically going to want that under 100. 160. Right, 160.
Boom!
A whole lot of LDL. Yeah. What were the other ones? Like some heart markers, apolipoprotein B. My heart's working so hard to make my blood pressure so fucking high.
Seriously, that checks out.
Yeah. What else? Yeah, a couple other things like in the red, nothing too crazy, like some thyroid markers out of line, which I don't love. Gotta get that checked out. But that was the main one. Like the blood pressure, the cholesterol are like the ones that lifestyle modification. That's what I'm, that's what I'm going for. They're my markers of improvement.
So lifestyle, I mean, just the 18 pounds down. Well, the bloods are relatively recent though.
Yeah, I got them right before Thanksgiving, so a little, like probably 3 weeks ago. Okay. Yeah, so I was a little bit heavier then, probably maybe 5 pounds heavier then, but yeah, so then weight was coming off. Like a lot of the weight came off immediately just from like not having as much inflammation, less food, less carbs, less water retention. But the thing is, like I dropped down the food initially. I dropped from like 4,300 to 3,300 calories, and now I'm down probably like 2,300. I'm on like, yeah, like the big things that I've made the changes around. Like I'm still maintaining enough protein intake, but I dropped it down to, I was at like 1.5 grams per pound body weight. Now I'm down like right around 1. Fats, like being mindful of like omega-3s, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fats, as opposed to a ton of saturated fats. Eating more fibers, like oatmeal, berries, seeds, and nuts.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
so gay. It's so
Yeah,
gay.
yeah. It's like if I took everything I was eating before and I just replaced it with a bunch of cocks.
Yeah. your, your diet sounds like it's prescribed on the back of like a Cheerios box. Just like
Yeah,
some sort of cholesterol fucking Nestle Kellogg type
yeah. It's like
boilerplate.
someone skims through a Dwayne Jackson podcast once. This is their
Yeah.
diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy. That's unfortunate, man. Well, I guess, how do you feel?
Mm, I hate myself more than ever.
Okay, great. All right.
Yeah,
So now
it's
he's
I
he's
feel
still
I
he's
feel like a
still
big pussy.
wallowing in self-pity, and he's now he's just 20 pounds lighter while he does it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, it's a weird shift, man, because I've never in my life had like a focus not be on objective progress in the gym as opposed to being on objective health markers. Like that's never been a training goal for me. And like this is the first time in my life that it's actually like, oh, this is like, I don't know, kind of important if you want to stay alive, which that's pending. But it's a weird shift in the mentality around training because like obviously I can't lift as heavy because I'm not eating as much food. I'm not as like well prepared to train. So the workouts aren't as, especially coming off of a phase where like pretty much every session was like, oh, I've never done this before, but it's no problem. And now it's like, oh shit, like I'm doing worse than I was. I'm progressively doing worse week over week. Like the strength feels it's just not there. So like kind of just shifting the sights to like, all right, it's the objective performance isn't going to be the same. It's I'm not going to be able to move the same weight or hit the same reps. Um, this is one I didn't mention. I am doing cardio now for the first time since I
Okay, are you
stopped.
like are you coming out? Is that what this podcast is? I told you to
Yeah,
surprise me with it, but I didn't expect this.
yo, it's wild. It's wild. Yeah,
God, did
it's
you buy rollerblades too? Like, what the fuck is going on here?
yeah. I'm not far off. I'm not far off. I don't know what's going to be next, but
Holy.
it's yeah. I know. I'm gonna buy a gun. That's what I'm gonna do to counteract this. But
Yeah,
yeah,
real tough shit. Just
catch me
cheddar
on the
bob yourself.
treadmill with my new sig.
Strapped. Yeah.
Pussy.
Call me a pussy again. I dare
Tell me
you.
how much you bench. Oh, okay.
Oh God.
Here's
Yeah.
my
Not with
sig.
a hole in your labrum. Okay. So the new you certainly you're not just chasing numbers on bloods though. You're just trying to get mad shredded. Like what's there's gotta have you can't just be going all in on health, are you?
No. I haven't actually come out of the closet.
Okay.
It's yeah. So that is the thing. Like I'm doing a few things. Like I'll take blood pressure, blood glucose in the morning. I've added in the cardio. I've changed the diet. Like obviously lost some weight, but yeah, this it's kind of like the way I look at it is I do want to be above 200 pounds because of performance. Like I just feel stronger because obviously you'll be stronger with more mass on you, good mass. Because I did get towards the end of the bulk, I got a little fluffy. It wasn't like a lean 208 that I was at. I mean, it was relatively lean, but not like lean, not like peeled lean. So yeah, right now the goal is to like decrease body fat, maintain as much muscle as I can, push the performance in the right direction while I'm here. Like I'm not gonna just fucking roll over and die, but it's like, all right, kind of like a reestablishing a baseline right now because this is all relatively short term. And then once I have the baseline, then progressively start to push on that. So yeah, like kind of lean out and then just take a slower approach to getting the body weight up, just a more sustainable approach and just more mindful about the things that I'm eating. Cause it's like, all right, it's a lot easier to eat 4,300 calories if I'm having steaks and pizza and cheesecake and shit like that. But like, dude, and this is the first time like I've actually questioned this is like, do I have the discipline or like the ability to eat that much food if I'm eating like nuts and berries and seeds and oatmeal? And like there's see how much leeway there is there to start to push that up. So it's like this is very much just a recalibration. It's like, all right, how much of these things do I need to have in so I can see a positive improvement in health markers so that I can lean out a bit, and like where is my actual performance baseline, and then from there start to build on that.
What are you anticipating as far as like when you get back to a similar body composition as to where you were before you started bulking up? Well, how much weight and muscle do you think you would have accrued in that process? Because like it's kind of like an old, like you're kind of going between the process of you did what would be called like more of an old school bulk and cut type thing, and then
Right.
there's like the main gaining whatever the fuck lean bulk way that seems to be like sustainable. But you bring up an interesting point on the latter half of like how scalable is eating like a squirrel at 4,300 calories, right? Like
Right.
how, right? So, but I'm curious, like when you think when it's all said and done, you're down 18 now. Where do you see the leveling point, and how much weight do you think you'll have maintained, or what's the goal? Do you have any idea on that?
So yeah, I mean, I was probably around like, I can look back. I'd say I'd fluctuate between like 183 to 186. Like when I started this, like I think this is probably the lowest I'll be is like 190 and some change. So that's like, at the high end 7 pounds, at the low end like 3 pounds. I think like you put some carbs in me, you put some fluids in me, like I'd sit at 195 right now.
Hmm.
So like I think it's substantial, like probably 6 pounds of muscle over the course of, let's see, I like went hard into it like starting July, so July to like September, like 3 months, and then a bit of time to take off some of the fluff. So that's like, it's not bad. And the thing is, like, man, I look at how I was training in that time, and like it reminds me of kind of like when I was training for CrossFit or like training for wrestling. Is like every single session, I would like walk into the gym and I'd be like, you know what? If you're gonna justify giving yourself diabetes with the shit that you're eating, like you better train your fucking ass off. Like it was probably the hardest, you know, 16 consecutive weeks of training I've had in a long time, man, years. And like not hard in the sense of like me going in like, doing what I'm supposed to do, and like 'cause strength training, it's a lot more objective. It's like, all right, I'm gonna do it what I have to do. I'm gonna, make the bar move, I'm gonna hit the numbers, and then I'm gonna walk out, I'll do my accessory, whatever. But this was like, I made myself nauseous like probably 3 days a week, like so nauseous that like I wanted to throw up before I left the gym. Like it, that could have just been the blood pressure, but
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
yeah. There's a couple factors creeping up there. It could have been the
yeah,
dynamite roll from the night before, the ribeye you had for breakfast. But yeah,
right,
yeah.
yeah,
But still, I mean, the thing with that is those are more or less standardized to a certain
yeah.
degree prior to, right? Like you've trained in
Mhm.
states of high blood pressure, and that's I miss that. I'm happy for you that you got to push that. That's a fun training experience.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that like it definitely lit a fire because it's like it's hard to see that the longer you've been training is that like one session just leads to the next to the next to the next, and you're like seeing improvements, even if it's just like, a couple reps, or like you're going up 5 pounds here, 5 pounds there. Like, dude, I don't even bench press, and I was bench pressing like 300 pounds by the end of this, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. Like, I guess I'll do this now. I'm like, sick.
You don't realize it, but this whole episode has just been dunking on me the whole time. Oh, I'm just like, wow, all right, this is really, he's going to do this right in front of me, just getting cucked on the
Uh,
show. All right, sick.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'll be dead soon, and then you could just fucking like shit on my grave or
Dude,
whatever.
I don't think anyone had you going before me on their bingo card.
No, no,
No,
there can't be anyone that had that.
I still think it's a
Maybe
race to the
someone that had
bottom.
like a hit out on me, but that's about it.
Yeah, I still think it'll be close. Knowing us, we'll probably die at the same time. Just make it real easy. Just like just like both flat lines somehow simultaneously. Just time of death on a toe tag is the exact same.
Yeah. It's like when fucking people's grandparents get old and like grandpa goes and then grandma goes like 2 days later.
Yeah.
It'll just be the same thing. It's like, you know
Well, I
what?
think the nice part is you're one of very few people who don't burden me. And if we died at the same time, if we died at the same time, even your death wouldn't be a burden to me, which would be great.
Yeah. No,
So
don't even
as
worry about coming to my funeral. Don't, yeah. I don't even want to be there.
oh no, I want to hear what other people have to say about you. I'm going for the material for sure. I like look, there's some people who are showing up just to get their last jab in for sure.
Oh,
So
yeah.
do you have now as you kind of program like what because I think it's a useful like I can't help but bring up the Joker reference. I feel like I brought it up a few shows ago, a few episodes ago, where it's like if if everything goes according to plan, nobody freaks out, right? Where like he's in
Mhm.
the hospital, he's dressed like the nurse, and he talks about if a soldier gets blown up overseas, no one freaks out because it's all part of the plan. But if like one person goes in and blows up a hospital, everyone loses their minds. It's like this is where I think dieting for whatever the outcome be their objective or subjective it's and there's a fundamental essence to this principle that exceeds dieting but I think it's useful for people to grasp this going into it where it's like you have to part of establishing the plan is establishing what the plan is going to feel like and calibrating your expectations. So when you run into these things, you are able to go, right, this is a part of the plan. Hey, my numbers didn't go up this week. This is a part of the plan. And being able to reframe your decrease in performance as a stepping stone towards the goal, which is something that a lot of people miss as they kind of end up in this ebb and flow of consistent I'm going to eat up because I feel small and weak, and then I'm going to rapidly cut down because I feel fat and fluffy, and they never make any progress because there's no sustained stimulus of surplus or deficit because
Right.
everyone has a plan of like calories, macros, protein, carbs, fats, etc. But no one has a plan for that subjective side, right? And it's
Mhm.
it's it's something I see on the coaching side as well. It's like being able to communicate that, hey, look, the things that we attribute to success in the gym need a recalibration of what that means towards success of our goal. Because like if I get a check in from a client and that client's food is down and we're in this phase where we're looking to whether it's improve health markers or improve aesthetics but overall lose weight and be in some sort of caloric deficit and I start seeing performance going up, it's like, what do you do on the weekend? What did you have for dinner? Because you're
Yeah.
not in a caloric, right? And not to say that all caloric deficits are going to cause a decrease in performance, right? But going from 4,300 to 2,300 is a pretty massive shift over the course of a couple of weeks. And you had your reasons and were well within your right to do that and cut that way. But by and large, if I see performance going up, that's a good proxy to me that I'm dealing with a client who's not in a deficit.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think there's a bit of wiggle room on that in terms of like performance going up. There has to be some sort of relativity to it, right? Because my performance is not going to go up relative to 8 weeks ago when I was squatting 500. It's going to go up relative to like what I'm saying now is the baseline that I'm establishing now, right? It's like, okay, let's see what we can do. Let's find like, I mean, relative, like say you're training at RPE 8 and that's your baseline. It's like, what does RPE 8 look like in terms of dumbbell bench press, in terms of walking lunges, in terms of leg press? Like how many plates is that? It's not compared to, 8, 12 weeks ago. It's compared to right now. Like this is what I'm real stuff. This is compared to like 2,300 calories, not 4,300 calories. And it's like I've worked with people through this before, but I'll be honest, like this is for me mentally training. This is way harder than any push phase, anything else has ever been. Is like staying engaged and giving a fuck when performance is like say it's down 30% from 3 months ago. It's like, oh, like I'm just gonna put a shotgun in my mouth instead of a protein shake. Like it's so I think that is the hardest part, even if it is like, yeah, this has to happen. Like this is part of the plan. Like, to kind of answer your question, like the logical answer is you need to zoom out and see like where this is, like where this data point is on like that chart that is performance over time in terms of the master plan. Like, yeah, it has to dip down before it goes back up, because like if I would have continued to push the things that I was doing, like it's just not sustainable. Like the health markers would have gotten out of line, and it's not long before that catches up with you in the physiological, in terms of recovery, in terms of what you're doing in the gym, and like just the systemic stress. Like it's you can't progress that to a certain point before something breaks down, whether that's a knee or whether that's a fucking stroke or whatever it is. But like that's the hard part for me, is accepting like, all right, I have to go through this phase where things are going to like mellow out. They're going to decrease before they normalize. So it's probably going to dip lower than I want before it kind of comes back up to baseline. And then from there, that's like, all right, we're at the starting line now. This is where we progress from in terms of performance in the gym, in terms of calories, in terms of diet. But it's that kind of reshuffling of the cards where it's like, all right, you've been used to this for so long, and like, yeah, you feel like a fat slob, but like you feel strong. And now it's the thing that you kind of set your sights on. It has to change, because it's not going to be performance in the gym. Like I can look past being a fat slob if my squat goes up week over week. But now it's like, all right, squat's going down. So what can I look at? It's like, all right, like I look better in the mirror. I'm more lean. Like I can move easily. I don't get right Achilles pain every time I get more than 600 steps in a day. So it's like there are things you can shift the goal towards, but it's like there's always going to be that thing, like the reason that someone trains. And for me, that's strength. Like strength is king in training. Like for me, maybe that's not true for everyone else. So like that's always going to be the thing that I value the most, and it's going to motivate me the most. Like I have to trick myself to buy in, to be like, all right, if you get this shit in line, like that's going to put you in position now where you can pursue that again. But if you continue to pursue that now, like it's you're not going to be successful for a long period of time. Something else is going to break down in that period of time, and you're going to have to switch goals, like not by your decision, by external variables.
I think the conversation around the starting line is super important, because you're looking at like a cycle of losing and gaining and losing and gaining that started with losing first, but it's not where we really entered the story, right? Because like you've been lifting more of your life than not, and as a byproduct of that have ended up in good shape, favorable body composition, lean, to start this journey, to then go in. Because there's like, I want to, for like coaches and people listening, I want to parse out two use cases of like Jiunta, well-established lifter, very strong, lean, goes off into deliberate bulk, deliberate progressive overload, like classic progressive overload of adding 2.5 kilos, 5 kilos to lifts, and pretty much going in and doing, a modern day or what ended up being the strongest you've ever been, PR kind of week over week. There was an end goal to it. It was 12 to 16 weeks. And now we're kind of on the downswing. But so take the starting line of Jiunta as an avatar, and then take the starting line of a new client who's overweight, or at least not as lean as Jay is, or as favorable body composition. So when I say favorable body composition, I mean has a considerable amount of muscle mass, because there's like these skinny twink kids that are actually fat, but they're just really small and weak, and they hold the same muscle to fat ratios as someone who's like, a little bit bigger boned, and they're equally as useless, right? But at least the fat guy can move a little bit of weight because he himself is a little bit of weight, right? So like you have you on one end, and then I was going to sound bad. I was going to say you on one end and a twink on the other end, but we're not going to say that. Okay, sorry. You got all healthy and shit, and then it just went real gay there for a bit.
Oatmeal. I'm going to kill myself.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just I love how you got the Remington pump action next to the protein shake now, and just like it's a decision every single time. But like, look, you have a client who who is just starting to lift weights, doesn't have a lot of muscle mass, but does carry a little bit more body fat, that client, when they're new, will go through a process of strength, and I'm going to air quote strength, adaptation week over week when they're starting. And you might attribute this, or they might attribute it to, because one thing is for certain: when you start lifting, your appetite goes through the fucking roof. When I don't train, I don't eat. Right.
Yeah,
so like on days I travel and days I'm not training, like I have zero appetite. I can eat if I have to, because I've had to for so long that it's like not really a thing. I just do it. But if given the option, more often than not, I would prefer to not eat. The only time I eat on training days prior to training is because I want to be able to perform. And then once I've trained, then I'm hungry, I'm ravenous, then I'm like good the rest of the day. But the point being is like, okay, here you have you on one end and you have sort of a novice client on the other. We need to understand the difficulties or the differences between those two strength adaptations, right? Here you are someone who's plateaued their strength, for lack of a better term, plateaued their strength at their current body weight, and then have to start taking more extreme measures to get strong, right? You're trying to be stronger than you've ever been and stronger than most people ever will be. You're going to have to start to push food in a way where most people wouldn't. But you have a novice client who, is overweight and is just starting to lift and is going through. And I see this mistake a lot with novice clients and coaches, where they go, look, in the first couple of weeks, we're not going to look at the scale. You're going to gain some weight. You're going to retain some water, glycogen, and all this. Like, listen, bitch, your strength when you're a novice is about neuromuscular efficiency. It's not actually like a deep-seated neurological adaptation. You're just getting more coordinated, right? You're a baby fucking giraffe that's just getting your fucking sea legs under you, right? And if you're skinny fat out of the gate, I don't care, because long-term reaching health goals and performance goals, you got to dig, right? Like, I think so many people who train general population clients make this mistake in the early days of training a client, and they get all like performance based and they start doing, it's like, look, sure, if they can lift more weight, make them lift more weight, but do not let that diet slip. You need to pull people into a deficit so that you can get their hormones to a place where they can actually start putting on muscle, right? And that's the big difference. Your starting point, like, I've seen your free testosterone levels at the beginning of this cut. It was hilarious. Like, I know guys on gear that have less free testosterone. You are just all that is, man. Look, it's been a couple days. He shaved 4 hours ago and he has fucking beard out of his eyelashes. But it's like, well, why do you think that's the case, right? It's because it's your diet, your nutrition, your habits. Everything is, I wouldn't even say optimized. I would say everything is maximized for proper hormone production, for putting on muscle, right? So when you're hearing this, you have to consider your starting line versus everyone else's. And the goal is to, if you want the same results with your clients or with yourself, you have to start from the same starting line. And most people aren't. And I see people fall into that trap with their clients time in and time, what the fuck? Time and time again. Jesus Christ, man.
Gotcha.
Flight was delayed last night. Didn't get until 3. Brutal. Oof. Air travel. Shout out American Airlines. But I see people make that mistake where it's like, hey, we're getting stronger, we need to feed you. It's like, it's not strength, dude. It's just efficiency. Like, he's getting stronger squat. Like it's motor unit recruitment. It's not like he can train enough. He can train hard enough, or she can train hard enough to recruit muscle to a point where the glycogen depletion and all of that. That's not what's happening. It's not the same. So we have to stop treating them the same. Like, priority number one. And I think so often people lean too much into the training side and not nearly enough into the nutrition side on both ends of the spectrum, on bulking and cutting, if you will. So it's like, if you have someone who's new to lifting, do not let the novel adaptation of getting more skilled at lifting validate their wantingness and decision to eat more food, and worry about the scale, right? Like, fuck you. I don't care. That's why you hired me. We're not going to start feeding ourselves because what you're experiencing is not the same experience as someone like you, right? Like is like someone like Jiunta, who now like, he's redlined his performance, and in order to keep pushing it, he has to push other physiological variables. These people haven't even fucking dropped into first gear yet. They're nowhere near redlining their performance. They need to get their ass into a physiological, metabolic, hormonal state so that they may have a chance one day to do that. And it's just like, it's such an easy, lazy way to go about training people because it's so easy to justify, like, oh man, like I just can't. I'm so hungry. And trainers like, yeah, you know, like you're getting strong. It's way stronger to get, or way easier to get. It's like, you're not getting strong. Stop fucking telling people that. There's more weight on the bar, but that's not strength. That's efficiency in the early days. And so you just end up, and I see it, dude, man, the number of fucking HRT bros right now with like the receding hairline and the pot belly. It's like, you are a fucking walking heart attack. And it's like they just justify it with these very superficial, like, yeah, you know, like they got a bit of a bicep vein, but you can tell that's because they're kind of dehydrated from drinking so much the night before. And they just got a fucking boiler on them. Looks like they're walking around with a pillow under their shirt. And you're just like, how much, what you're doing? You're doing like TRT. You're doing like the old 400 milligrams of test TRT, aren't you? Right. You're not doing like the actual prescribed stuff. But that's what they do. They justify it with these very superficial understandings of how this stuff works. And I watch trainers sit there and just let them do it. It's like, do your fucking job, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a good point about like actual performance. Because if we think of this in two ways, in the way where there's the level of performance that someone's at and relative to, we'll say, their potential performance. And the greater that discrepancy is, then the more room there is to make up performance with things outside of diet. Like a bigger rock to turn is probably, I'm not even going to say the words, but looking into hormones, because their test is probably lower than it should be if they have too much body fat. Like there's habits that they probably have that don't align with them recovering properly, like not sleeping enough, like if they are drinking, if they're using tobacco, like there's all types of variables that you can look into with someone that is more gen pop that is going to shift the needle in terms of performance more so than just giving them more calories. Like I'd say probably 100% of the time, whenever I'm working with someone or I'm talking to someone that wants to improve performance in the gym and they're underexposed, like more gen pop, like where do you start? The number one thing, you probably need to eat more protein and probably less fat. Like that's probably the first thing that you can do. So protein has 4 calories per gram. Fat has 9 calories per gram. So right there, like you can increase your protein intake and decrease your fat intake, and you can keep your calories exactly the same. And that's going to create a favorable shift in terms of body composition. Get to sleep an hour earlier. That's going to help you produce more testosterone, more growth hormone, the things that happen in your sleep.
You're coming at me today, bro. Jesus Christ. Like I'm
sorry.
right here, dog. Holy fuck, dude.
No, but like this is how many times have you had this conversation though? It's like there's a lot of things you can do aside from just like throwing more calories at someone if you want to see performance, an increase in performance. And like kind of back to the original point I was making is like that the bigger the gap is between their performance level and their theoretical potential performance, like their maximum performance, the more of these things you can maximize to get progress out of them before like overall calorie surplus becomes relevant. Like the trade-off in increasing testosterone by decreasing body fat might outweigh the performance benefits of them having more calories to be fueled for the workouts. And it could just be, as opposed to increasing calories, like nutrition timing is like, just make sure you have some protein and carbs before your workouts and you'll feel better for your workouts.
Yeah,
like
there's a cyclical component to it, right? Like I think of it this way. Your bloods were good and you worked hard for a long time to get them good. And that wasn't necessarily your goal, but health begot performance for you until it didn't. And then you had to step out, step out of the Shire and get a little bit dangerous with shit And then all of a sudden, and this is where, dude, I fucking hate old people on the internet. But this idea that, get healthy, health is like, no, it's not. That's just someone, because it's a cycle. Like your first
Right.
pass, and if you're like a Gen Pop client, yes, get your bloods done, regardless of whether you're on hormones or not on hormones, and then do everything within our natural power to start leveling these hormones out. Right, like everything you said, the sleep, the nutrition, the hydration, all of that, and to see how quickly that those two things start to trend together. Of like, hey, look, my bloods are better and my performance is going up. But there's going to be a point where your bloods are great and your performance isn't get better. And then you got to go, hey, bloods, we're going to sorry in advance about what's about to happen.
Yeah.
But this is where real like high performers live. Otherwise, it would just be like the healthiest people in the world. You wouldn't see Olympic athletes dropping dead at 50, but it's like they have to go out and push, because at the other end of this health performance continuum, at the other end of the plateau, you have to sacrifice health.
Right. Yeah. There's always going to be collateral when you pursue performance. And like, I fully accepted that in this pursuit. It's like, all right, like I can, yeah, like
I'm ready to die.
Yeah. Like, I don't care. What do I need? A brain tumor? I don't, just give it to me as long as I can squat more. But what I'm getting at is that that collateral, like I could probably squat 4 plates, for the next, I don't know, we'll say 10 years if I live that long. No problem, with no collateral in terms of, my anything on my bloods, like cholesterol. Like I don't have to eat a ton of food. I just need to like, be mindful about my recovery and like stay on top of my shit, train reasonably hard and like be fine. And I'll probably be relatively healthy objectively in terms of blood markers. But like if I want to squat more, if I want to squat 5, if I want to squat 6, like the more performance increases, the more collateral there's going to be associated with that. Right. And that could be, it's going to be different for everyone, again, depending on your genetics and your propensity to perform. But like, this is something that I have a relatively high affinity to perform in, say, weightlifting or like, strength sports for my size. So it's something that like, if I want to continue to pursue this, I'm already at the outskirts of what would be like an outlier in terms of strength. Like most humans will never snatch what I've snatched or squat what I've squatted. So it's like, all right, you take someone that's an outlier and you want to get them to increase 5, 10 more percent. That's an insane amount of improvement on someone that's already good at something. So it's like, all right, the further you want to go, the more of an outlier you want to be, the more risk is associated with that. Whether that's like, disc herniations or like ligaments in your knee or whatever it might be, like a triangular, what was it, fibrocartilage in the wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you tear that shit, like, yeah, goodbye snatching. But like all these things could happen. Like there's so much collateral that you're putting on the line. The stronger you get, or the harder you, or the higher you perform. But the people that have the affinity to that, they're going to take the risk because they're so close. Like it's being 5% off of a world record. Like not me personally, but like someone that's 5% off of a world record, they'll do whatever the fuck they have to do to increase 6%. Right. So it's like people that are that close, they're going to accept the risks. I think what you're talking about, though, there's a bunch of retards out there, like nowhere near that realm of possibility, that are putting themselves in positions to take unnecessary risks for a very mediocre level of performance. And I don't know if that's out of ignorance or like vanity or like notoriety or whatever it is, but that's all too all
It
too
just
present on the internet nowadays.
it's just crazy to me that like competition drives evolution.
No?
Period. Like and it's competition. This idea, like a finch never competed with itself. It never woke up and was like, be the best version of you today. A finch was never like 1% better. Like it never had that dumb mindset. It was just like, yeah, I gotta hunt to eat, and I gotta be better at hunting than the other guy, so I don't starve to death. And it's like, and this is where I think performance and understanding the ebb and flow and the trade-offs between performance and health. And I'll go to toe with anyone who wants to argue this, because if you show me someone who does not recognize, and I think given this context, more people will back off from this argument. Yeah, there are phases in which you have to deprioritize health in order to improve performance. And like, this is,
Absolutely.
I'm talking primarily about things that are more dependent on output, right? Like you can make the argument that something like mixed martial arts, training in a weight room, the way we're talking about training, with lifting barbells and dumbbells and machines and cables and whatever, and the stress that induces, and the demand and recovery that induces, as a byproduct of that, what it takes to continually move that needle over time progressively and be stronger than you need to be, whatever that means, comes with it a sacrifice of your health. Like I could see where a 154-pound UFC fighter does not have, now mind you, there's a ton of collateral in taking on that as an undertaking. So, how safe is getting your head punched to early dementia? But it's like, if we're talking solely in the realm of resistance training, increasing muscle, and more importantly, increasing strength, and maybe increasing muscle as a byproduct of increasing strength, you will, given how your body regulates that adaptation, right, and has so many bottlenecks to that ability to load, right? Like your ligaments, your TFCC, your discs in your spine, all of these things have a carrying capacity to it that become that much more stressed as you start to put on more weight, not only on the weights you're lifting, but also to the body that's lifting them. Right. Literally had a friend of ours, him, I'm not going to say his name on the podcast. He sent me a lateral lumbar series this morning.
He said
And
it to me too.
yeah, right. So funny. I'm curious what you told him. The first thing he's like, we joke around a lot, and I told him his lumbar spine was gay, and he agreed. And I was like, he used the prescript language of, can we outfunction this fucked up structure? And the first thing I said was, if you have a fighting chance of beating these herniations, it's getting lean, it's getting light, right? Because body weight is the component of load that people don't take into consideration, right? Like we can easily look at your bloods, we could look at your blood pressure, and we can look at the body weight you've gained from July to September, and we can see the, I'm going to air quote, damage done. But you brought up a really interesting metric of performance that you had to sacrifice to push this one up the hill. That's, I walk 600 steps and my fucking Achilles lights up. It's like, well, yeah, think about it. You got your rucksack marching, whatever the stupid shit that is. You have an extra 20 pounds on you every day, day in, day out. Right. And that's going to lead to an accumulation of stress on the tissues that you then, by proxy of having that weight, are allowing yourself to stress even more with the weight you put on while you have more weight on. So you would call this a non-linear expression to stress. When you gain weight to get stronger, you don't put stress on your body in a straight linear fashion. You put stress on your body in a curvilinear fashion or a logarithmic fashion, because the stress of gaining weight compounds your ability to lift more weight, which then allows you to gain more weight. Right. So it's a slippery slope. And in the realm of weightlifting, muscle gain, performance with a barbell, I contest. I'm not going to fight. I'm too old. I don't care enough to argue with small people about how to get big as someone who's small. It's like, okay. But like, I don't know someone who, given the constraints of that context and logic, could argue in a meaningful way that maximizing potential in that arena does not require you in strategic bouts of overreaching to infringe on things that we would call health.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. It's funny. I assumed he was under eating, so I just told him to eat. I don't know what the fuck his diet's like, but like it is a
It
good
looks like
point.
Elon Musk. He's built like a Cybertruck. Shit together, homie. God damn
Yo,
it! Nah,
what are you doing? What are you doing?
he's got a busy life. I don't have kids, so I don't know what it's like. But
Yeah,
um,
no, I can't imagine having kids, but I got a
no,
busy
dude.
life too. Figure your shit out.
Yeah, seriously. But I look, and here's we kind of led into this in a podcast a few weeks ago. Understand too, when we talk about starting lines, we've talked a lot about training age as a starting line.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a consideration, and this is important, consideration around chronological age, right? Because there is a certain amount of leniency that we still have, and we're far less lenient than we used to be. Like there are things that I won't do anymore to push performance because I know that it has a detrimental effect to my health in a way that's maybe not irreversible, but is far less reversible now than it was when I was in my mid 20s. 10
Right.
years ago, whatever it took. Like that was it, whatever it took. But like people people will spend some time around me and they'll sometimes wonder like, hey, you like keep your size pretty well for a guy who doesn't eat a lot. Because there are times where I don't eat a lot. If I'm stressed or if I'm working, I just forget about it. And like I said, I don't have a massive appetite until I train. That's why I usually like to train in the morning so I can easily get a full day of eating in. But what they missed was a decade ago, I did anything it took to beat another person, whatever it took to be. But it's like there's a residual that comes with that. That like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you put it in the framework of for the next decade, you could squat 405 with minimal effort without having to like really deviate off of the training that you like to do at the body weight that you like to do it at. You could unrack 405 off a bar and squat it. No problem. That's because you've gone through cycles of health and performance to health to performance and health to performance at a time in your life where you could take those risks, right?
Right.
And there is a resiliency that comes with that that allows you. I think the most important thing is to learn your lessons, right? Like, dude, I remember having sleep apnea while I was awake. I remember being on a plane to Frankfurt in 2015. So yeah, like almost fucking 10 years ago. And I was maybe like mid 280s, 285. And I remember going, like, I was like, what the fuck was that? And I was like, that was me trying to breathe because my neck was so fucking big. And
Yeah.
it's just like, look, I can get away with that now because I don't want to have to get away with that when I'm fucking 65. Right. Like, and it's because I did it then that plate has spun and it's spun to a velocity where I don't need to sit there and where it's much harder when you're older to get that plate spinning.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're and this is true even of people starting in their early 30s, like, you know, dog, you just adopted the darkness, man. We were born in it. Like you can't play those games. Right. So when you're playing around at a chronological age, it's not the same starting line, right? It's not the
Mm-hmm.
same starting line as people who really took liberties with their health at a time where they were physiologically resilient, got, you know, some favorable returns in performance as a byproduct, and then cyclically, when that no longer served them, got healthy, pushed again. But the chronological age has to be mapped over the lifting age because if your lifting age is 0 but your chronological age is 30 or 40, your the cycles of unhealth to health in pursuit of performance need to be pretty quick to a point where if you start lifting in your 50s, you're just kind of staying fit, right? Like you're kind of just at best you're going to wear Patagonia jackets forever and maybe you do a 10K, right? Like, and this is where, you know, I don't want this to turn into the same podcast as a couple weeks ago, but like if you're at a point, if you're under the age of 35 and you have no pre-existing conditions, right? And you have your bloods and you're healthy by all markers and you don't have congenital predispositions for things and you like to train, you can, I think, and this is not medical advice, and so I'll just say this is what I do and this is what I plan to do for most of next year because I'll be in the trips I'm doing next year are of a longer duration with hopefully less plane rides, is I plan to really push muscle mass next year so that as I go into mid 30s into 40s, I'm going to establish a new baseline of muscle mass, so that once you hit, mid 30s downward, and I'll fucking take concessions to make sure that that doesn't happen. But like statistically, the amount of muscle mass you're going to carry will drop. So it's like I have a window, chronological and lifting age, where I've been doing this for fucking ever. And I still have a point in my chronological age where these adaptations are not only possible, but possible to do in a way that's safe given my lifting age, right? Given the fact that I've been doing this, like I can push up to a level. Like if someone started at 34 and wanted to set a goal of like, yeah, I want to get 21-inch arms and I want to curl 75-pound dumbbells, that's dangerous. But if you've been lifting fucking biceps for 18 years, it's like, oh, okay. Like, what, you got to put 10 pounds on your dumbbell curl and then 2.5 inches on your arms. That's easy, right? So it's like, but understand those two things. And if you're coaching people, Jesus Christ, explain this to them. Explain, look, we're going to cut you down. We're going to cut you down to get you healthy, because healthy is the first wave of performance. After that, we're going to have a conversation about what we would need to do to push through plateaus that we see once you're healthy, and the collateral that would come with it relative to your lifting age when superimposed over your chronological age. And then you make a decision, right? It's as simple as that. But like, people don't like multivariant analysis of like, well, if this, then you got to consider this, then this, then this. They go, health and performance are always, I'm like, God, dude, you fucking stupid boomers. You stupid fucking boomers. Stop saying that, because it's true for them because they're old, but it's not true for people who are in their 20s and 30s.
Right. Yeah. Someone that gets into this late, like you've already used up your unhealthy days because you're completely unhealthy because you didn't spend any of that time getting healthy.
One of my favorite quotes of all time is the youth is wasted on the young. One of my favorite quotes of all time. I think it's, who said it? Maybe it was Hemingway. No, Mark Twain. I think it was Mark Twain. I love it so much. Youth is wasted on the young. But think about that as you get older. It's like, and this is like without going off into like some spiral of life. Like, look, if you're sitting on the fence as a 25-year-old about really like getting jacked and like, oh, I'm worried about my it's like, take a look around your life and see where you're not taking the risks that you should be. Because in fucking 15 years, you're going to be working at the enterprise counter and you're still going to look like a twink. So like, use that as a proxy in your life, because the bigger risk is working at enterprise. No shade to anyone that works at enterprise. I ran with 6 though. So, just whatever. I'm just saying. But like it's funny to see how people's, the old, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Shout out James McIntosh. Because it's like, if you're in your mid-20s and you're worried about cholesterol, you should be worried about the rest of your life. We'll leave it at that. All right, cool. Hey, I appreciate you guys hanging out for the week. We'll see you guys next Wednesday, same time, same place.